Do you remember in 2020 during the BLM era where people would pretend to be black online and say the craziest things? For me, I always knew they were probably trolls who wanted some entertainment. I could only name a handful of classy young black celebrities, despite knowing a lot of classy young black people personally. Even my friends noticed this, which is what inspired me to make this video. And most of these classy young black celebrities, for example Zendaya, are biracial and have been vocal about it. I say we, because even if it's not by choice, we are a community. Not a community in the sense that we all know each other and have to get along, but a community in the sense that we are grouped together. Any ethnic minority that steps out of line is the spokesperson of the entire group, which is how stereotypes are formed and still continue. You do not need to fight for rights anymore, now is the time to blend in and assimilate. We might be under the illusion that things are fair, but some things never will be, at least not in this lifetime, and therefore it is always best to stick to what we know is right. Just because you see somebody else doing something and you want to do it yourself, doesn't mean you always can. For example, I'm really into prank videos, and I watched a few on Reels and wanted to try some myself with some friends that were available. However, I realized that most of the videos I was watching were made by conventionally standard people, therefore, if I tried to replicate them it wouldn't be funny but actually annoying. Eventually a prank video came up on my feed and it was made by a black person, and I didn't even want to look at the comments. It just made me anxious that people would interpret it in a certain way, rather than it being funny. A very good example would be Fred Bayer, not to be morbid but he would likely be dead by now if it wasn't for his circumstances. And that's a really important thing to learn, just because your friends are doing it or you see other people doing it doesn't mean you can join in. You can learn this through reading children's books, which I will go through in a different video. This brings me to my next point, KYP and SIL. This is what I live by, and it means, know your place and stay in line. There is not a single black person that doesn't know they're black, and if you don't know, you will know. Life will show you. If you're in a new neighborhood and people are looking at you in disgust and you're being treated with cruelty or ignored, it's because of your appearance. Either you're different, or your group has been in the news lately for a bad reason, or you are insanely ugly. It's one of the three or all three. For me, KYP and SIL have been good ways of knowing the best things for me to do, and I have an entirely leaflet and folder of rules to follow when out and about that make my life a lot easier. For example, before I get onto public transport, if there are people trying to get on as well, it's better to wait until everyone is finished and then go last. Unless you're prompted by someone to go. The reason why I do this is because, while subtle, if all seats end up being taken and you're black and sitting, it just doesn't look good and it will definitely leave some people irritated, especially if people who aren't black are standing. You don't want to discriminate against your own people by staying seated if there are only black people standing, and therefore it's better to stand and let everyone have a seat unless there are plenty available. I say this because while seats on public transport is not a big deal, depending on where you are, to even be on public transport is a privilege, and therefore to steal a seat from someone who would otherwise be sitting down if you weren't there at that time is a huge deal. Moreover, KYP and SIL have other appropriate settings and scenarios. For example, on the days where you're aware emotions from people would be more heightened. Like if a black person does something wrong and it makes the news or goes viral on social media, this will typically be shown in real life too. This is where you would typically pull out the SIL, the stay in line. So the clothes you wear are important. I personally don't wear hoodies anymore at all. I'm either wearing a dress or a collared shirt. If I'm wearing blue jeans, I'm aware that I'm putting a bigger target on my back. Other items include a wet wavy wig, any necklaces or earrings, colorful clothes, dark clothes, oversized shirts or jeans, jacket or raincoat, any kind of handbag with a long leash or backpack. These type of clothes or items are things I do not tend to wear during SIL because there is no evidence of me staying in line. These clothes are indicative of being comfortable, and usually when people are worried about their lives, they are not comfortable. And so it can sometimes come across as an insult to people when you're clearly looking comfortable during a difficult time. I think some forms of discrimination is an innate and primal thing, and therefore no matter how hard you try you would never be able to combat it, and it's up to you to change. If you were a dragon and you were walking down the street, as much as it's interesting, you would probably be shot and killed because you appear like a threat. Children would probably scream at the sight of you, and people would avoid eye contact or cross the street if they were to get near you. You would probably be followed and watched carefully if you went shopping, and you'd either lash out because you're upset that you're so hated, or you'd conform and try to look less intimidating. A lot of people would lash out, but that only leads to more hatred and disgust. A lot of people would find it hard to have empathy for a person or dragon because of their appearance. They don't look innocent and they're scary. And therefore if the person or dragon ended up lashing out, they would either be killed or arrested. And that's life. Therefore, in order to survive, you have to conform. This means it's better to be mid and small or basically invisible than to try to look attractive with flashy colors and labels. I keep my gaze lowered in public and I try not to attract any attention, which I would consider to be KYP, knowing my place. And I'm happy. You will find joy in making others happy.